Hello, this is Jillian from Offshore Management Training, where you're gaining tips and tools to manage your team from a distance. So, today's topic is going to be about having your team repeat back to you what they heard. Oh my goodness. I cannot emphasize the importance of this enough. I manage a very large team over in India, and on my first trip over there, one of my coworkers gave me this tip. And he said, in India, they will yes you to death. Now, I think part of that is cultural. However, I think part of human nature is that you want to pretend as though you get it, you understand. You never want to be the first person to admit that you don't understand something, because that could leave you feeling very vulnerable and out there. So there's a tendency for people in general just to say, yeah, yeah, I get it. Also, studies have shown that remote teams are less likely to participate in things like group calls, conference calls, so on and so forth. So the likelihood of anyone actually over the phone or over like a Zoom meeting, which is what we use in my office, raising their hand and saying, hey, I don't get it, is further decreased just by the fact that they're not physically in the room. However, I cannot tell you how many times I have been saved by the fact that I've asked them to repeat back what I heard. So I'll give you an example. You're in a meeting, there's some sort of procedural change, and it's imperative that they get it right and that they get it quick. And so you're talking, explaining, probably killing it and doing a great job. And it could be very clear in your mind. However, they miss one thing, they miss one tidbit of information, and it's quite possible that they could be lost for the rest of the conversation. Also, too, when we talk for a long time, people have a tendency to zone out. They think about other things. They're hungry. They have to use the restroom. God only knows. At the end of your explanation of what has changed and what the new procedure is, you always want to go back and say, okay, who would like to summarize for me what it is that they heard? And this illuminates so much for you, because when someone tries to repeat back to you what they heard, you will immediately find all of the misinterpretations and the misunderstandings that they have, and you have the opportunity to squash them when they're small versus when they go out into the world and start implementing these changes thinking that they're doing exactly what you wanted them to do, when in fact they were way off. Also, another thing I find is that they are quick to talk amongst themselves afterwards, but if none of them have the correct information, that could be catastrophic. And it also depends on the size of your team. If you have 3 people, not one of them got the full story, and yet they're trying to piece it together on their own, the work product is going to suffer. So when my team was smaller, and it was something super imperative, I would go through and have each person tell me exactly what it was that they heard. And like I said before, it was really illuminating. So I'm saying ABC, but somebody else heard ABT, and I'm able to say, oh, no, the T is actually a C. And then we go through it again. Another thing that's really helpful is to drill it with them. It seems kind of, I was going to say counterintuitive to spend your time like just repeating the same thing over and over and over again. But I know in my work, a lot of our policies and procedures are nuanced, and a lot of them change very quickly, and a lot of them have far reaching impacts for the other teams in the office. So if we don't do our part right, nobody else can do their part right. So I spend a lot of my time, number 1, explaining what the change is. Number 2, getting them to repeat it back to me. But then thirdly, I have them repeat it back to me multiple times. And so again, when my team was small, I started off with 3 people. It's pretty easy to do that. Now I have a much larger team, and we have probably a total of 8 different meetings per week. So in smaller groups, I will pick out the key people, the ones who absolutely need to know it. And that's typically my managers and my team leads. And I ask them to repeat it back to me. And then if they get one thing wrong, that's fine. I say, okay, I clarify where the misunderstanding is, and I ask them to repeat it again. And then once that person gets it right, I move on to the next. So this is one of my favorite tips. It has saved me countless hours of heartache because I'm able to nip things in the bud and catch them very, very early. So I hope this is helpful. Once again, this is Jillian from Offshore Management Training. Until next time, near or far, manage like a star. Bye.